Hello, I'm Mary Spicer, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Behind Fashion. The fashion industry, like so many industries, is in distress. People around the world have joined together to demand the social justice and racial equality that we all deserve, and no industry is exempt, and the hard work continues. I created this series so that we could help support one another as we move forward in this new world in a thoughtful and collaborative manner. Over the next few weeks, I will introduce you to amazing people behind the scenes of fashion show producers, venue managers, hair and makeup artists, and so many more. During the interview, I will receive your questions that you send in for our interviewee. And if I can get to them, I will. If not, don't worry. I will certainly respond to them at a later time, as well as if you're viewing this program live or on my YouTube channel at a later date, just email me your questions, mary@jamproductionsco.com. And our guest today will respond to you in a timely manner. With a virus that discourages the interaction of people and the touching of clothing, what does the future hold for the fashion industry, and how are our roles changing? I look forward to collaborating and sharing our ideas and journeys as we move forward together. Today, it is my great pleasure to introduce you all to Mr. Martin Casella. Martin Casella is a playwright and a screenwriter. His past plays have included Black Tom Island, Premiere Stages 2018, The Report 2015, Fringe NYC, London 2017, The Irish Curse, Off-Broadway, London, LA, Edinburgh, Dublin, Prague, Bratislava, Chicago, Rio, and Colombo, Sri Lanka. Published by Samuel French. Paper Moon. Film and TV include One Night Stand, directed by Talia Shire. Behind the Lens for CBS. Staff writer on the ABC daytime drama One Life to Live. He also wrote and developed screenplays for Steven Spielberg, Kerry Washington, Anthony Edwards, Whoopi Goldberg, Dan Petrie Jr., John Milius, John Badham, Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, Paulus Productions, CBS, and HBO. All latest film projects and theater projects are on hold, but for the theater projects, Mary Modern, a musical adaptation of Camille Angelis's novel with composer-lyricist Keith Gordon. Miss Maud, about the 1950s meeting between South Carolina midwife Maud Callan and Life magazine photojournalist Eugene Smith. Club Dangerous, a jazz musical with the songwriting team from Play It Cool. Directions for Restoring the Apparently Dead. And Popstar, a new musical with Play It Cool director Sharon Rosen and starring Sidney James Harcourt from Hamilton. His awards include Fringe New York 2015 Overall Excellence Award for Playwriting, The Report, and 2005 for The Irish Curse. New York Outer Critics Circle nomination, Best New Off-Broadway Musical, Play It Cool. GLAAD nominations for Outstanding New LA Play, The Irish Curse, and Best New Off-Broadway Musical, Play It Cool. Dramalogue and LA Weekly Outstanding Play Awards for Mates. Martin is a graduate and taught playwriting at the California Institute of the Arts. He taught for 8 years at the Harvey Milk High School in New York's East Village, and it's the only public high school in the US which is a haven for LGBTQ students from around the country. He is a member of WGA, SAG-AFTRA, Actors Equity, and the Dramatists Guild. Martin has worked as a stage manager for fashion events in New York and the US since 1996. Welcome, Marty, and thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here. How are you?
I just can't believe that we have the opportunity to talk to you. I mean, it truly is amazing, everything that you've done. And so I don't know if you got your cup, but I would like to cheers you on,
Yes.
I had to list everything that you did because that is amazing.
Well, thank you.
Mm.
A friend
And that
called
is,
me the other day after I had posted some information about something, and she said, what, that's a life. Wow. And it is. I've been very, very lucky to be able to do so many different things.
well, and it is luck and it's talent. And so, and I have witnessed that talent. And, but before we go too far into this, I do just want to take a moment. You and I had spoken a while ago, and I just want to check in with you and your family. Everybody's fine, but when we spoke a while ago, your nephew had contracted COVID-19. How is everybody doing? How is he doing now?
He's really well. My nephew is a doctor at UCLA Hospital here in Los Angeles, and he contracted it, and it was very, very scary. And thank you for asking about that. He's really well. He was very, very sick for almost a month, and at one point did have to go into the hospital. But
Wow.
yeah, and
Was
all
he intubated or
he
just?
wasn't intubated. No, when they brought him in, he was having trouble breathing, and there was a time period when it looked like they were going to have to, but they basically hit him with everything they had to get better, and he did in an incredible amount of time. He wasn't better, but he was back to the point where he was functioning and could breathe and be on his own again. And then about 2 weeks after that, things turned around, and he was able to actually, as he said, get up out of bed and shave and take a shower. He's doing great things. He's not a big guy that goes on social media a lot, but he is actually speaking out very much now about, there still are people who don't believe that the pandemic is real. They don't believe that it's really happening, and he still runs into people who think it's a hoax and it's fake. And
Wow.
he spent a lot of time lately on social media trying to tell his own story and make sure people understand that it is a real thing. It affected my entire family. My entire family saw him a couple days before he got sick, and this was way back in March when things seemed very far away. There was that one day where everything just sort of turned around, and that's right exactly the time when he got sick. And my whole family had to be in quarantine, including my 85-year-old father and many of us. So he's all better now, and he went back to work a few weeks ago, and he's back. He's a trauma surgeon, so he's back doing that at UCLA. So.
Well, and thank goodness he's back. We need all those people helping us.
We absolutely do. And I found out a little secret. He was extremely well taken care of when he went to the hospital, and for that one day, and they checked on him every day. They did conference calls with him every single day he was sick at home, because they said, you have to come back, because you're saving people's lives here doing what you do, and we have to get you better, because one person, as you and I have discussed many times before, one person can change a lot of lives for a lot of people.
Yes.
So, and he's doing really well now. And one of the first things he did when he went back to work was he had to do emergency surgery on a 5-month-old, and and saved her. So we're all very proud of him. So.
Well, and he was meant to be there, and I'm just so glad. And everybody's fine. Nobody else.
Fine. Nobody else got sick. It was miraculous, actually, that none of us got sick. But everybody's well and functioning, and our family's very serious about all this. We stay at home as much as we can. Everybody wears masks, not gloves so much anymore, but we did in the beginning. My entire family follows all of the strict, CDC rules, and
we do too, and I have a nice collection of gloves, so I will keep wearing them.
Yeah, I think we all have gloves and mask collections that will probably, someday in the future be saved for future generations. So
absolutely, there are new go-tos in fashion. Now you're in California right now. You were in New York for a long time, but you grew up in California. Your family is what you would call a Hollywood family. Your dad is in the business. Your stepmom, your Who all is in the business and what is everybody doing?
Right now, my dad and my uncle are both retired now, but they were both in the film industry. My dad and both of them were transportation coordinators, which was they made sure all the trucks moved around. And then my dad owned a big business that were trucks. My stepmother worked at Paramount as a travel agent, and then she had her own travel agency that basically worked exclusively with the studios and the big talent agencies. My sister right now works for let's just say a group of very wealthy, well-known gentlemen. I don't want to be a name dropper. So, and she does all
You
of
could be a name dropper.
my other sister and her boyfriend are both Teamsters, and my brother was a film director, a stage director, and a casting director. And I will drop some names now because I'm very proud of my brother. My brother was the casting director for the new Mickey Mouse Club in the early 1990s. And he basically discovered Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Kerry Russell, Ryan Gosling, and Justin Timberlake. So they
what? Did you say Justin Timberlake?
I did say Justin Timberlake.
Oh my gosh, I love him.
Yeah, we love all of them. And my brother found all of them during the search for the Disney, the new Mickey Mouse Club. And
that's amazing. That's amazing. But now you have also been with some very important people that we did not mention this opening. Yeah. Your first work was as an assistant to Mr. Spielberg in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And this is one of my favorite things. So I printed it out. I took a picture of the screen, assistant to Mr. Spielberg.
Yes. I started the job after college working for my dad on a film that Mr. Spielberg was directing, and after a while, since our offices were next to each other, I got to know him, and then he requested work for me to work with him on we worked out, there was a lot of miniature work. It was back before CGI, so a lot of the special effects were done on big giant sound stages with huge miniatures. And I worked with him for 3 months as obviously assistant there, and then he asked me to work with him on Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I spent almost a year working as his assistant on that. And in between all that, when we took a little break, I got to be the assistant to Robert Zemeckis on a wonderful cult film called Used Cars with Kurt Russell. So I spent 3 months working with Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale on their film. So, yeah.
And as I heard, Mr. Spielberg was very happy with you. Now, you left everyone to be an actor, but he was very happy with you, and he asked you to come to a filming and then surprised you with an announcement. What did he say?
Yeah. When I quit working for him, I went back to being an actor and a writer, which is what I had always wanted to do. That's what I'd studied in school, but I sort of hit a wall and got tired of it. And about 3 months after I left, I had worked on pre-production for both E.T. and Poltergeist. And a movie called Always, and a number of other things. And I got a call one day from a casting director who said, "Oh, Steven wants you to come in and read for a role in Poltergeist. We're having trouble casting a role of one of the ghost hunters." And so I went in and did that, and I auditioned, and I didn't hear anything, as actors always and often do. And then one day I got a phone call from Steven's office saying, "We're going to have the very first screening of Raiders of the Lost Ark," which I'd spent a year on. And he said, "Steven would like it if you were there." And I showed up, and I got there a little early, and Steven drove up a couple of minutes later, and I said, "Where is everybody?" And he said, "Oh, they're all going to be here." He said, "I asked that you come early because I wanted to be the one to tell you that we're casting you in Poltergeist." It was.
And here you are.
Here I am. with a lot more hair and big giant early 1980s glasses.
Wow, is that fantastic? Look at that tie.
Yeah.
And who you played, though, which I also love.
Yes, I played a character named myself because they had to change my name. And most of the movie, you only hear me referred to as Dr. Ryan. And near the end of the movie, the actress Beatrice Straight has a scene where she says, they ask about my character. I don't die or anything, but let's just say some really gross things happen to me.
A lot of people have to have seen this movie, and you're the one who tears your face.
Tear my face off in a very big, dramatic, scary scene. So, but then it all comes back. It turns out it's just a dream. And later on, toward the end of the movie, there's a line, and when they were shooting it, nobody had thought about this, and they got to the scene. I just went that day to visit. I'd finished all my work already, and Beatrice Straight, who plays my boss in the movie, has a line, and she said, well, what am I supposed to say? We can't say Dr. Ryan. That won't make any sense. And so the director, Toby Hooper, yelled out, oh, just use Marty's real name. That's fine. Just that's what it is. So now in the credits, I'm listed as Marty. She said, she has a line that a lot of my friends teased me that they're going to put on my tombstone, which is Marty won't be coming back, because the ghost scares me, and I'm too afraid to come back. So
Marty won't be coming back.
Won't be coming back. Yeah.
I love that. And I did love that scene in the movie, and just so amazing. Now your career you were doing a lot of things. Yep. What made you decide to go to New York?
Well, a play that I'd worked on with my brother, who's a director, a theater director, we had worked for several years on a musical version of the famous old Peter Bogdanovich, Ryan O'Neal, Tatum O'Neal movie, Paper Moon. And so that looked like it had a big producer. We had all the money. We had this amazing cast, Gregory Harrison, Christine Ebersol. And I went to New York to do it, and some things happened, as happen with creative projects, as we all know. And we did it out of town, and then some things happened, and there were creative differences, and it ended up not going forward. But I decided to stay in New York because of that, because at that point I was asked to work on another musical. Someone had seen my work when the show was out of town, and it was a musical that was being prepped to be done, and somebody called and said, well, we love your work. We want to hire you to be the book writer. So I stayed, and that's a friend of mine was working, doing side work to make a little money on the side, working as production in fashion shows at Fashion Week. And so I volunteered and said I would love to do that, and I got a little training. And so for the past 23, 24 years, I've been working with the same team. And often the team changes. I am now except for my boss, as whom you know, and I'm that last person standing from the group that started in the 1990s, and it's great. And I've got to travel all over the United States doing fashion events and fashion shows.
Now, and I know that you and I have spoken before about how theater, television, film, just worldwide. Yeah. Everybody's out of work. And then I said, why can't you just set up like a camera and film a live Broadway show, and everybody they're in quarantine and they come and perform. Can they just do that on Broadway to have these shows performing, and then I pay to be on that show, like watching it on Zoom or something like that?
It can't really happen. We can all watch right now. Theaters and ballet and orchestras and symphonies and dance companies all over the world have opened up their files, their libraries. So we can, any given day, you can go on the Royal Shakespeare Company. I just watched a ballet from Japan the other day. You can do that. Sometimes you have to pay, most of the time you don't. The problem with shooting live things is that there are unions that control all of that, not just the actors' unions, but the stage hands, the directors, the Dramatists Guild. And it would be extremely expensive to be able to do that. Plus, live theater itself depends on the audience reaction. And then you get into a whole area with, you can film some things, and if you do them a certain way, it's under the stage unions. But if you film things another way, then it becomes under the auspices of SAG-AFTRA for the actors. And it's very, very difficult to film live things sometimes. We have plenty of things that where cameras were plunked down and you can watch Broadway shows. There's whole channels and places you can go and buy DVDs and watch them. But doing things that are live while they're going on, you can't really do that now during the pandemic, because you'd have to do testing for everybody. You'd have to, it's very difficult. There is one theater company in New Hampshire, you and I have talked about that they put their entire company that they knew were going to be working with them for 5 months. They put everybody in quarantine. They have two stage managers who apparently use iPads to film performances. And everybody has to live in a space. They're not allowed to go outside. They're not allowed to interact with other people. And that theater company broadcasts those things 3 or 4, 5 times a week. You pay $15, $20, $35, and then 10 or 15 people at a time can tune in and watch that. So a version of that is taking place, but on a big level, of Broadway level, that would be very, very difficult.
It is, and I know that they've talked about it with sports, and many of the sports people like, I'm about to have a child. I'm not going on lockdown and missing the birth of my child. There is life that's happening.
There is.
So,
And, like, baseball is technically, I believe, going to come back around July 4th. It's great American, all-American sport, 4th of July. But they're going to be playing in empty spaces. Everybody's going to get tested all the time. They have to stay in quarantine. And there are really famous, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but there's a very, very well-known baseball player who basically said, no, I have a baby at home. I'm not doing this. I'm just not doing it. It's not worth it. So
no, that's yeah.
We don't know when theater's going to come back. We just don't know. I mean, what are they going to put spit guards up? Actors spit a lot. You've seen everybody.
No, never go in the first 3 rows. I don't know if anybody knows this, but I never do the first.
No, never do the first 3. You will invariably be spit on, and musicals are completely out of the question. Now, because that's where actors, singers spit. They just do, and so yeah, it's very difficult. And film is going to be coming back. We've all heard about Tyler Perry down in Georgia. He's going to start making movies again, and everybody will be quarantined, and no one will be allowed to leave, including the entire cast, the crew. He's got a giant studio where they actually can put people up in hotel rooms. And my sister's being told that they're going to go back to work, but it's taking a lot of negotiations between the film companies, the unions, and the city, like the city of Los Angeles. All of that has to be worked out because, as we've seen in lots of different cases, and I don't want to get political about it, but people's lives aren't worth losing so that people can watch a movie. Right. There's plenty to watch. There's over 100 years worth of film and television, and theater that's on film that we can watch, and they just can't risk,
Marty, that's a great idea. Why don't I get from you like your top 10 or 20 movies, and we'll put it out on Facebook and say, if you'd like to watch something, here are some great recommendations.
And I'd also be really happy. A buddy of mine in New York sends out a list every week that's of all the amazing places that you can go, and for free watch. I mean, you can go every week. The Royal Shakespeare Company and the National Theatre in London both take one of their shows, and they show it live. You can watch it. There's a spectacular version of Frankenstein that was filmed live in front of an audience with Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller. It's brilliant, and they showed that for a week for free, and so there's a lot.
I would love to be able to share those. Let's talk after this.
We can talk afterwards, and I can help come up with a list for you. Yeah.
And at this point, I'm pretty sure my viewers on my fashion show are wondering why I have a screenwriter playwright on a fashion program. So can you explain why most people with the New York Fashion Week team that you're on have backgrounds in theater and film industries?
Yes, absolutely. My boss very much believes she usually uses people who have theater backgrounds. We have a guy who's a Broadway choreographer on our team. We have a Broadway stage manager. We have 2 playwrights that have worked off Broadway and in regional theaters, because fashion shows are theater. They are. You have to rehearse them. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time to rehearse. Not in the United States. The ones they do in Europe, they often rehearse for 3 days or a week in advance with gigantic sets and 15 cameras. And we are under a very tight schedule when we're doing a fashion show. Even something on the level for the last 10 or 12 years, I used to work the finale of Project Runway, and that was a huge undertaking. You can't pull people who don't have experience. who don't have experience in film or television, because now we all know fashion shows are all filmed, because all the designers show those videos of the whole show and the finale in their showrooms. They show them in their stores around the world. And you have to have people who have experience. So if something goes wrong, we're used to live theater. Things go wrong in live theater all the time. I've done fashion shows where a model was put together with a double stick tape on a dress, and she walked down the runway and the dress just fell off on the runway, and she stood there, and we all jumped into action and kept the show going. We did a fashion show, you may have been at this one, where someone in the audience at Fashion Week had a heart attack and died. It was a woman who was a huge fashion lover, and her family said, well, if she was going to die, we couldn't think of a better place. And we were all backstage going, what the heck do we do? And we all knew, our team knew, because we've had things like that happen in theater. And rehearsals are really well run. It's taken us years to finesse working. How do we do a rehearsal with 25 models who are all in hair, all in makeup, doing costume fittings, while sets are being built around them, and our boss is rehearsing the lighting cues and the sound cues. And we only have 2.5, maybe at the most 3 hours to get a rehearsal done, not only with 20 models, but with the hair and makeup team at the end of the runway, with all of the tech people in the booth doing the rehearsals, calling cues. They've got to check the lights, the makeup, and you can't do that.
The actual model rehearsal is not 3 hours. It is.
The model rehearsal, at the very most, you'll get 20 minutes. And
20 minutes,
unlike old time shows or the big fancy shows in Europe, the models go to the end of the runway and they turn and they come back. But we still do shows where they'll send what we call a chevron. 3 models will walk down the runway, 1 in the lead, and then they'll change. And sometimes we'll do staging for finales. We'll do, alternate entrances from either side. And models that we're working with, they're doing a show before us and often a show after us. Sometimes we don't get those models until literally 20 minutes before they're supposed to go on stage. And we've got to be calm. We have to be cool. We have to go makeup team, hair and team, double time them, triple time them. Let's make sure if she has a fitting, we do that. We have to do this while she's in line. We've had models made up while they're in line, seconds away from going on stage. And you have to be cool and calm. And that says
a lot about the models too, because I have done even swimwear shows where I literally was just up in there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Walked out like nothing happened. Everything's fine.
Yeah. I mean, we have to be able to have been dealing with a model. I'm the guy who stands in the portal. The portal, for anybody who doesn't know, is the doorway the models walk out of onto the runway. And I'm a foot from there with a headset on, listening to my boss give me cues, and I'm watching everything that's going on backstage. And we'll have anything from an earring will fall off, a dress will tear. We've had shows where they'll throw a pair of shoes on that have eyes and hooks, and we're like, it's dark, no one can see. I have 5 people trying to lace up someone's boots in the dark. And with somebody holding me, often holding the flashlight on my iPhone. And I've got to be letting my boss know, this is what's going on. You're going to have to slow the show down. And in the theater, you inherently develop a sense of that. We all know, for anybody who does fashion shows or any kind of theater, that the universal symbol for stretch, someone's not ready, is. And we have to be able to be calm. It took me 5 years of working my way from the back of the line, which is literally pulling models from their dresser and putting them in line, to being up near the front of the line, feeding people to the person who's sending. And then finally, when the person who's sending retired, I got to take her job. And it's sort of like a seniority system. And and
you need to know, though, you need to know all those parts. Like so many
I need to know, because my boss is in my head asking me, how many models do you have? And most of the time we have something, for all of you who love fashion, it's called a rotation. It's the line, it's the way the models. And when you work with a really good designer, a good stylist, and a good team, that's all been arranged so that there's a certain distance. But sometimes you'll do a show where they go, no, I want that. I want Helga, I'll want Tatiana to be wearing dress number 5 and dress number 9. And we all look at one another and go, could be impossible. Depends on what the clothes are. If it's a simple on and off, we can do that. But you have to remember, she's number 5, she goes out. Then number 6 and number 7 are probably out there as well. So she has enough time to step off. They take her clothes off of her, put on a dress, or put on a top. They'll change the top.
With a zipper,
And she
but
will literally be walked to me. And as Judy says, number 9, go. I will sort of gently push her out onto the runway. Often, sometimes while her dress is being zipped up in the back, or a hair guy going and fixing something on her hair. So you have to have experience.
I'm sorry, we're running out of time, and I need you to come back already. But we have to talk about this, and that's why I'm stopping our conversation.
Okay, got me. Yeah, I wanted to talk about fashion. So
you have a Broadway musical called Popstar that is on hold, and I asked what your role was in that. You said librettist.
Yes.
Is that correct? A librettist, and that's my new favorite word. Can you tell me what a librettist is and a little bit about the musical Popstar?
Yeah, there's a term libretto. I think it comes from opera. It's Italian, and it means the actual part where they're not singing. And that's the story and the dialogue. And so that evolved in America to be, I'm the librettist. I wrote the libretto, and that also is called the book. If it's a musical, that's the book for a musical. And I make sure how it's shaped, what the structure is. I work with the writers where the songs go, and I write the dialogue, and I shape the story so that the whole story gets told. And that's what someone who writes the libretto does. So you're also called the book writer, but libretto sounds cool.
I think librettist is so much better, and I am absolutely keeping that word.
Great word.
Now, I can't wait to see it. A couple weeks ago, you shared a video, and everyone was singing. They were singing, I think it's the final song.
It's the title song of the show, Popstar. It's just very quickly, it's about a manager who is down on his luck, a pop talent search guy. He needs to find the next big thing in pop music to keep his own career going. And he finds a 16-year-old boy in Idaho that he decides to turn into a famous pop star. And the road is very rocky for him getting there. But in the end, he gets his wish, but let's just say not in the way he expects to get it, which is what my writing teacher always told me: give the audience what they want, just not the way they expect it. And in the very last scene of the show, on the night of the Grammys, after he spent a year trying to find a pop star, he does in a way, but not how he expects. And so we hear the title number, which takes place at the Grammy Awards. And it involves not only the new pop star that's been created, but 5 other hugely famous pop star characters that we've met along the way. And it includes the entire company at the very end of the show. And it's very catchy. It's I remember you said how much you liked it, and the music's terrific. And our songwriters are, I'm just gonna say their names because they're amazing people, Jay Levin and Sophie Dupin. And they're American they write pop stars songs for real. And
I imagine that song is fantastic. And you have the actor from Hamilton.
Yes, our wonderful lead, Sydney. Sydney Harcourt. And we were so lucky to get him. That was not who Sydney is not how the character was played before. And Sydney came in and somebody said, oh, he's interested in doing it. And it changed everything for our show. It took it to a completely different, we'd had wonderful guys doing that role in the past, but Sydney brought it somewhere else. And the fact that he came from Hamilton and he was one of the original cast members, you will be able to see him. I'll plug it very quickly on Disney Plus is actually showing, they filmed Hamilton early in the run with the entire cast, and that they're going to make that available, and you'll be able to see Sydney. He plays one of the big roles in the show.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. Now, when I watched the video, it said that I can make a donation to Broadway Cares. Can you tell me a little bit about Broadway Cares?
Broadway Cares is an amazing group that's been around for a very long time, 35 years or more. It was started in New York on Broadway in the 1980s to help. The Broadway community was decimated by AIDS in the 1980s and the early 90s. So a bunch of people got together and they created this group. They do fundraising events, several of them every year. They have raised hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in the last 35 years for people not only living with AIDS, but that expanded, and helping actors and anybody who works in the theater can go to them and get grants. They can get money, and they also give money to terrible tragedies. They've given lots of money to help, and they did a special fundraiser to help because nobody can act except those 10 actors in New Hampshire. Everybody else can't work. Nobody. People are losing their health insurance. They can't feed their families. They can't pay their rent. And so Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, along with the Actors Fund, is one of those organizations that is helping actors and everyone in the theater get by. And so we made a video of our entire cast from a version we did last fall. And we're asking people to give donations to Broadway Cares, which is, I believe, broadwaycares.org.
Broadwaycares.org. And I mean, that's honestly so amazing. And if people can give to that, it truly is a wonderful group to work with. I'm going to share that video of everyone singing. Please. On my Facebook following this show. It'll be there. I think there's already a connection on my YouTube channel, and I'll put up the information once again. I had a lot of questions for you, and we will get to none of them. We are over the time, and you absolutely have to come back. You're just amazing, and there's always so much more to talk about.
Well, next time I will happy to come back, and we can talk about like crazy fashion shows that we've done, and amazing, wonderful things that have happened, and great surprises, you know, that happen when you do fashion work.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing, and it is very much theater. You know, and it is a very serious thing.
Yeah.
As enjoyable it is, because we're working with artists.
We are. It took me a long time, and I came across that. I finally understand that now. Clothing design is an art. It's one of the great arts. It's why the Metropolitan Museum of Art has a whole department that's about design and fashion and clothing. And yeah, and I will leave you with one thought quickly. The fashion show that they did at the Met that made me realize that fashion is an art was after Alexander McQueen tragically committed suicide. They had an amazing show about him, and I saw it 3 times. And that was when I finally went, wow, this is, and by that point I'd been working in fashion for over 15 years. And I thought, this is an art. This is an art form. And
yeah.
It is.
Part of it is telling the story, and we're able to help the designers explain the story of the clothing, how it got there, how it evolved, and who the person is that's wearing it.
Yeah, and when I started, I was like, what do you mean we're telling a story? It's a bunch of dresses, or it's a bunch of coats or jackets or shoes. And then after a while, you begin to see, yeah, it is a story. It is.
It really is. Well, thank you so much again. And I definitely need you to come back on and update us on everything that's happening. And so much love to you and yours.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, Marty. And thank you all for attending this week's Behind Fashion series with guest Martin Casella. Martin's website is www.martincasella.weebly.com. And you can follow him on Facebook, Martin Casella, Instagram, M. Casella Writer, and Twitter, @M. Casella Writer. Please visit BroadwayCares.org to help support the theater industry during the pandemic. The video from Popstar will be shared on my Facebook, as I mentioned, and you can find it on my YouTube channel. The website for the musical Popstar is www.popstarmusical.com. Next week, I will be joined by Patrick Mueller, the founder and director of Control Group Productions. See you next week, Wednesday, June 17th, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, noon on the East Coast, 9 a.m. on the West Coast, and 5 p.m. British Summer Time. All the best to you and yours.